Chapter 1, I Don't Want to Die Yet. The city night wasn't dark. Bai Luan sat on a cold bench by the street. His back rested against the stiff metal backrest, his face a bloodless gray. Though traffic reflected in his eyes, he was thinking about his 20 years of life. His parents died early, and soon after his grandparents raised him, they also passed away. He, full of youthful passion, worked like an ox in the big city. He faced all sorts of difficulties without flinching, trying to make a name for himself. All in all, he was a positive, responsible, slightly kind young man. He loved playing Honkai Star Rail in his free time. As a reward for all his hard work, heaven allowed Bai Luan to get cancer. And it was late-stage liver cancer. Damn it. They said the more optimistic, the luckier. Good thing he spent all the money he earned before he died. Bai Luan looked up, seeing a dazzling Herta poster on a giant screen. The screen was playing on a tall building. If I were in that world, surely a disease like this could be easily cured, right? Hey, wishful thinking. Bai Luan felt the constant sharp pain in his body. His eyes filled with the exhaustion and numbness of being tormented by illness. So unwilling. I don't want to die yet. On the public bench, Bai Luan closed his eyes forever. In a haze, Bai Luan opened his eyes. The pain from the cancer was gone, there was nothing around him. Only an endless expanse of white. A voice came from an unknown place. Do you want to live another life in another world? Yes. Then let's go. At Herta's home, Herta, who was taking a stroll, paused. A space in front of her suddenly twisted. Cells began to appear in the twisted area, then spread at an extremely fast rate. From microscopic to macroscopic, gradually becoming visible. Then slowly forming a human figure. Herta stopped, staring at the front with interest. After all, a person being constructed from the cellular level was not common. What kind of person would emerge? Such a complete construction process, an interesting sample. Right now, your body is being constructed in the Honkai Star Rail world. While this happens, I will explain my origin to you. You systems have an origin story. You can call me a system for easier understanding. But in reality, we are a high-dimensional life form. We just received an emotional module and are currently adapting to it. You are actually a kind of organism. Yes, the systems that are omnipotent in your eyes are actually mass-produced. There's a whole group of us surprised, unexpected. More than that, I'm surprised you have emotions and talk like a person. Systems being emotionless creations is a stereotype. However, before the great reformer appeared and had us accept emotional modules, we were indeed as you imagine. This system is truly quite human-like. All right, enough small talk. I chose you as my observation sample and gave you a chance to restart your life. Mainly because of an assignment my mentor gave me, why should we revere life? Bai Luan couldn't help but retort. Do systems even have academic pressure these days? Yes, brother, they do. But we can just fudge it to get by. No, seriously, are you really not a college student pretending to be a system? It's not wrong to think that way, ahem. Back to the main topic, I chose you because I felt something. Having had cancer, you should understand the meaning of life better than others. So I picked you. Next, I will observe your life in the Honkai Star Rail world. I'll use the insights gained from observing your life as the answer to my assignment. So, I got a free resurrection. Yes, no 30-second ads, no need to type one. How does it feel to be resurrected like the boss? Bai Luan was silent for a moment, then said with an incredibly sincere tone. I want to kowtow to you, seriously. Brother, it's not that serious. We're just getting what we need. To help you live well in the Honkai Star Rail world, I've given you 2 cheats. One is the little black room with infinite practice time. After entering the little black room, you can practice freely, and external time will stop. The time spent in the little black room will not affect your real lifespan. The other is the curio forger. Any item you create can be freely converted into a curio. The higher the quality of the item you make, the stronger its ability. Bai Luan pondered for a moment, then asked, Are you saying I can even enter the little black room the instant an enemy punches me. Train myself into a martial arts master, and then return to reality. And beat the enemy senseless. Of course you can. But your physical body in reality won't get stronger with your mental improvement. You can learn skills instantly, but you can't become an emanator instantly. Of course, imbuing you with the power to become an emanator is not difficult for me. I could even imbue you to become an Ian. However, doing so would cause a person without a path who becomes an Ian something. It would draw the attention of all Ians and also suffer rejection from this world. Don't ask me why I know so much. If that happened, I wouldn't care, as it wouldn't harm me. But you might not be so lucky. Sounds like you've done it before. Yes, and more than once. Those guys who gained Ian power either became breeding stock, plowing fields day and night, or turned into tyrants, acting arbitrarily and autocratically. There were also some little brats who couldn't tell the big picture. The power was all given by me, yet they dared to scheme against me. I was already annoyed because my mentor scolded me for their messed up deeds. And then they pull this, truly seeking death. What happened to them in the end? Killed them with a flick of my hand and reset their universes along the way. What's the difference between you and a creator god? Not that low level. The system's tone was flat. Everything you can imagine, I can do. Including imbuing you to become an Ian, while also writing a complete path for you. The only two reasons I don't do it are, 1, it doesn't help my assignment. 2, it's too much trouble. Just like you wouldn't meticulously care for an ant, at most, you'd toss it a sugar cube. If you have difficulties, I don't mind helping you. But you need to show value worth helping, even if it's just emotional value. My goodness, emotional value. Bai Luan's mouth twitched. When he was little, he didn't just toss sugar cubes to ants. More often than not, he brought them natural disasters. Good thing the system he encountered wasn't researching human suffering or something. Otherwise, if he was thrown into the Honkai world, he'd be finished. All right, your body in the Honkai Star Rail world is almost constructed. It's time to send you over. Bai Luan suddenly felt a sensation of falling. Try to live a splendid life in this world. If you can give me some insights, I will give you some rewards, like immortality. In Herta's residence, Bai Luan, who was lying flat, suddenly sprung up with a carp-like flip. He sat upright. My goodness, what an absolute falling sensation. I thought I died by jumping off a rooftop in my last life. Bai Luan raised his hands and saw a pair of shrunken hands. Why do they look so small? Oh, right. To help you adapt to the Honkai Star Rail world, I made a small modification to your body. And I also reduced your body's age. Your original body, it was truly indescribable. So many illnesses at such a young age. When you talk, you sound like my traditional Chinese medicine teacher who used to examine me. Just then, a familiar voice entered Bai Luan's ears. You're awake, little one. Bai Luan looked up and saw Herta staring down at him. You were constructed from scratch by a mysterious force right in front of me. You had best prove to me that you are not an abundance's spawn. Otherwise, for the sake of my curiosity, I will dissect you for research. No. Whose first task after transmigrating is to convince Herta not to dissect them. Damn it. Chapter 2, it was aha. At this moment, Bai Luan's mind was racing. He was trying to find a plausible explanation for his unreasonable appearance. The young girl in front of him was none other than the famous Ms. Herta, the 83rd member of the Genius Society, who had met the Ians twice. She saved the Azure Star from 19 crises. She was a magical girl genius who even patted her chest. Weaving an airtight lie in front of her, this was truly too difficult. I've got it. I can use the information asymmetry of a transmigrator to pretend to be a prophet. I know the future plot developments of Honkai Star Rail. This is my biggest advantage. So then, to be frank, Ms. Herta. Bai Luan slowly stood up from the ground, patting the dust off his body. Although this body looked quite young, he displayed a composure completely at odds with his appearance. He showed calmness and maturity. You must have heard of Elio. Oh, you actually know that fellow who calls himself a slave of destiny. Elio and I are very similar. Are you saying you can also see destiny and predict the future? Precisely. Bai Luan stood in place, looked up at Herta, nodded and said, "Even though this is our first meeting, I know you are MS Herta, the 83rd member of the Genius Society, who has met the Eons twice. You saved your homeworld 19 times. Furthermore, you are also the developer of the simulated universe and the owner of the Herta Space Station." Herta looked at Bai Luan, confidently stating these things. A slight smile appeared on her face, and she said, "While you certainly know a lot, there are a few points you got wrong. I only saved my homeworld 15 or 16 times, I believe. As for the simulated universe and the space station, I have never heard of them." Upon hearing this, Bai Luan remained outwardly calm. He adopted the contemplative expression of a wise man. In reality, he was completely panicked inside. "Oh no, I didn't consider the timeline. I've actually arrived at a point before Herta built the space station. Herta Space Station, it's been around for at least 700 years, right? Why did I come so early? Forget it, I'll deal with it later. The important thing now is how to smooth over this lie. I've got it. It seems I've revealed many things I shouldn't have. It's time for me to be more cautious with my words, lest others who can glimpse destiny become displeased with me. Are you saying that the 19th rescue of the Azure Star is something that will happen in the future? And that space station and the simulated universe? Exactly. If I don't do those things, will I be able to change destiny? Destiny is revered precisely because when you deliberately turn your back on it, something happens. Every step you take will precisely become its winding path forward. Hey, space charlatans, this genius doesn't believe in your kind of talk. That is your will. Bai Luan spread his hands. I cannot change it. Herta looked at Bai Luan, unable to discern truth from falsehood for a moment. So Herta decided to use technology. She clapped her hands twice, and several Herta puppets appeared out of nowhere. Some brought heavy leather armchairs and mahogany coffee tables. Others carried steaming bone china teapots and exquisite desserts. Even more were cooperatively assembling a complex, blinking device. It was sensor-covered and cable-laden, a metal chair. Soon, a device that looked very much like an electric chair was assembled. The Herta puppets assembled it. Bai Luan's gaze involuntarily drifted towards the newly assembled electric chair, then rigidly returned to Herta. At this moment, Herta was sitting in a leather armchair. She was enjoying the hot tea brewed by the Herta puppets. The Herta puppets stood in a line behind Herta. Noticing Bai Luan's gaze, Herta put down her teacup. She began to select a dessert to eat, saying as she chose, "What are you afraid of? That's just a lie detector. Sit on it, and it will distinguish truth from falsehood in an instant. Very convenient. Can a person deceive a machine? Especially a machine invented by one of the universe's rare geniuses." Bai Luan felt as if he was somewhat doomed. "Sit on it, I'll protect you." Hearing the system's voice, the panic in Bai Luan's heart dissipated considerably. He sat down with peace of mind. After Bai Luan sat down, a Herta puppet walked over. It placed a helmet on him. "Is everything you said true?" "All true." Herta glanced at the helmet on Bai Luan's head. No alarm. Could it be that this little fellow in front of her could truly foresee the future? Although Herta thought the veracity of this matter was very low, she trusted her invention. It would not make a mistake. "How did you come here?" Finally, questions about my background. Origin. I can't just say the system sent me. How can I concoct a plausible and reasonable origin in such a short time? I've got it. I was living an anonymous life, but for some reason, Aha took an interest in me. He sent me to this place. Even my body, for some reason, transformed into its current appearance. Are you saying it was all the Eon of Elation's doing? Yes. Bai Luan nodded with utmost certainty. A big black pot was directly placed on the head of the Eon of Elation. Aha, the most useful excuse in the world. Anything outrageous can be blamed on him. I truly am a genius. Herta glanced at the helmet on Bai Luan's head again. Still no reaction. The Ian of Elation's handiwork, huh? Ms. Herta, I can understand your confusion. Before he sent me here, I didn't believe he would do such a thing. Now it seems I still underestimated the Ian of Elation. He's What can't he do? Seeing Bai Luan's expression, clearly exasperated by the Ian of Elation, Herta also chuckled. She had to admit, randomly picking a lucky audience member to prank like this was quite amusing. Though a bit hellish. Why were you living anonymously? Of course, because I didn't want to be caught by the company. Thanks to Elio, people like me are highly sought after now. Who knows what I'd become if I were caught? You can foresee destiny, can't you? Can't that ability help you evade capture? Bai Luan shrugged and said. That ability didn't help me evade either. It seems that ability isn't as powerful as rumored. Even Ians aren't omniscient and omnipotent, let alone a mortal like me. At least you have self-awareness, knowing that this ability brings a lot of trouble. Wanting to hide, that's much better than some fools. Those who, upon gaining a bit of ability, rush out to seek death. But why are you willing to explain the situation to me? You were going to dissect me for research. If I didn't speak, was I just supposed to wait to be sliced up? It seemed even more hellish. Herta chuckled again, a brief light laugh, then said. You actually believed that, I was just trying to scare you. After being messed with by I finally understood something. Hiding and evading won't work. Any random accident can make me lose everything. It's safer to become strong myself. You're right about that. Bai Luan looked at Herta and tried to say. So, Ms. Herta, can you take me in? I think there's no safer place in the entire universe than with you. Don't you want to know if what I'm saying is true? Given time, you will eventually know the answer. And if you take me in, if I lied to you, you'd save yourself the trouble. The trouble of searching the entire universe for a liar who dared to deceive you. Those reasons are not enough for me to take you in. Destiny tells me that with you, I will be useful. Although destiny hasn't told me when I will be useful, I will be useful eventually. So, Ms. Herta, do you believe in destiny? Or rather, are you interested in spending time to verify whether destiny exists? Herta glanced at the lie detector again. Since Bai Luan put it on, it hadn't shown any alarm. This proved that everything Bai Luan said was true. From hiding and evading to being pranked by and wanting to stay and become stronger. It was all true. Herta trusted her invention. Then, I'll keep you for a long-term experiment. Herta stretched in her chair, stood up, and said to the Herta puppets behind her. You few, take him away, prepare clothes, find him a place to stay. Then assign him some random tasks. It seemed he would be allowed to stay. Bai Luan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. From the moment he sat on that electric chair, everything had been improvised. Weaving a logically sound lie in front of a member of the Genius Society was truly challenging. His desire to stay with Herta was just a small attempt. He hadn't expected it to succeed. It was a pleasant surprise. Thank God. No, to hell with God. Thank Herta and the system. You two are my true gods. While Bai Luan was inwardly thanking the system and Herta, the helmet on his head was taken off. Was it a Herta puppet who took it off? Thinking this, Bai Luan looked up and saw Herta's face. One of her hands reached out and pinched Bai Luan's cheek. People who can see destiny don't look particularly special on the outside, do they? Her fingers pressed slightly, deforming Bai Luan's cheek a little. She examined him from side to side. Then Herta stared at Bai Luan's face for a while, revealing a slight smile. She commented, You are quite pleasing to the eye. You have a pair of very beautiful eyes. Herta withdrew her hand and straightened up. I don't keep idlers here. You'd best prove your usefulness quickly. Bai Luan rubbed his face and stood up from the chair. Understood, Ms. Herta. I will become useful to you as soon as possible. Then I shall look forward to it. Herta turned and left, casually waving her hand. As she departed, the silent and efficient puppets began to move again. The lie detector was quickly disassembled. The exquisite tables, chairs, and tea sets were magically cleared away. Soon, the corridor returned to its previous emptiness and coldness. One of the Herta puppets walked towards Bai Luan. Bai Luan, right, follow me. Chapter 3, A Wonderful New Life. Bai Luan followed behind the Herta puppet. Since his body had shrunk, his current height was about the same as a small Herta. It seemed it would take some time for him to grow back to his original size. He knew nothing about this maze belonging to a genius, so he could only follow the Herta puppet step by step. He wondered if there were any men's clothes in Herta's home. Wait, why would there be men's clothes in Herta's home? Bai Luan suddenly realized this terrifying fact. Apart from Herta and her puppets, almost no one else lived here permanently. If he were to ask the Herta puppet, she would definitely say something. Why would Ms. Herta's home need such superfluous things? It was perfectly reasonable for Herta's home to have no men's clothes. Then, what should I do? Surely they wouldn't make me wear women's clothes, right? No, it can't be. Bai Luan suddenly realized that there was a possibility he would be forced to wear something. He might have to wear the Herta puppet's clothes. Their heights were similar, and their figures seemed to be. Bai Luan roughly compared himself to the Herta puppet leading the way. They were indeed quite similar. The more Bai Luan thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. So much so that he felt a bit of despair. Why are they so similar? Is MiHoYo's universal character modeling working its magic? Why is Ms. Herta flat-chested? Bai Luan had never, like now, wished for a certain part of Herta to be larger. Where is the Zenless Zone Zero development team? Where is the Great Thunderclap Temple? Help me out here. I don't want to wear women's clothes. Just as Bai Luan was about to fall into despair, the Herta puppets brought out something. They brought out a pile of weaving tools and began to work on the spot. In an instant, several Hertas each took on a role. They busied themselves with selecting fabric, cutting, sewing. In the blink of an eye, an assembly line was quickly set up in front of Bai Luan. It was running. I hereby solemnly declare that I have never slandered Ms. Herta. All previous remarks and slanders were spoken by my second personality, which has now been summarily executed. Ms. Herta is perfect. Even if her chest is small, she is still perfect. No, who am I swearing to? My own conscience. Looking at the rapidly operating assembly line, Bai Luan exclaimed. The versatility of the Herta puppets is simply too high. While the Herta puppets were rushing to make Bai Luan's clothes, another Herta puppet appeared. It appeared from somewhere, holding a tablet glowing with a cerulean light. As per Ms. Herta's request, we need to test your IQ. Please complete the questions on this. Bai Luan took the tablet. IQ Test Question Bank 13.3. This version had quite a few iterations, even with decimals. Bai Luan began to answer the questions in the order they appeared. From the simplest, 1 + 1 = 2, to more difficult equations. Then to more challenging functions, and finally, he couldn't do any more. No, what kind of insane questions are these at the end? How to calculate the optimal angle for rocket launch. The airtight principle of non-full coverage spacesuits. How to reverse aging. All of these were here. Even if I had 10 more heads, I wouldn't be able to write the answers. Even if you brought that old man with his tongue sticking out to do these questions, he'd be stumped. And this cursed question bank still had a 92% progress bar. Is this what you geniuses usually do? At this moment, Bai Luan was like an innocent boy who had never been exposed to knowledge. Oh my, I won't be kicked out tomorrow, will I? With a hint of despair, Bai Luan skipped the questions he couldn't understand again and again. He was trying to find more questions he could answer at his current level. He finally found a calculation problem that he could barely understand. Just as he was racking his brain to solve it, he found that time was up. The answer was terminated. Hey, now I'm screwed. After all, he wasn't a genius, so doing these kinds of questions was no different. It was no different from seeking his own death. Without waiting for the result, the Herta puppet snatched the tablet from Bai Luan's hand. Under Bai Luan's nervous gaze, the Herta puppet read out the result. A smart person in the eyes of the public, barely passable. It seems it's acceptable. Bai Luan breathed a sigh of relief. He swore that after this, if anyone said that studying hard was useless, he would explode at them. Just as Bai Luan was still lamenting, the Herta puppet had already walked over. She walked over with the finished clothes and handed them to him. Then a distant wall suddenly opened, revealing a small changing room. Go in there and change into the clothes to test the size. Can they really make them that fast? Bai Luan picked up the freshly made clothes and walked into the changing room. The clothes he was wearing, created by the system, were very simple. So changing out of them was easy. Putting on the clothes Herta made for him, however, was a bit difficult. Overall, this set of clothes matched Herta's preferred colors, mainly purple and black. The set given to him was a tailcoat, dress pants, a shirt, a vest, a jacket, a purple bow tie. Bai Luan adjusted the position of his purple bow tie, secretly feeling fortunate. Fortunately, he had worked as a high-end waiter for a while. He knew how to wear these clothes. Wearing them messily would have been disastrous. Smoothing out the wrinkles, he finally put on the exquisite tailcoat. In this changing room, there was a mirror, and Bai Luan could finally see his own face. Oh my, what a magnificent face. Gilded eyes, short black hair, an absolutely youthful look. And a flawless, impeccable face. His figure was well-proportioned and tall. The slimming effect of the vest was perfectly showcased by his body. The system had truly crafted an excellent face. It was even modified and optimized from his face in his previous life. This successfully gave Bai Luan a sense of participation. But honestly, if this face was expressionless, it was too easy for it to exude an aura. An aura of do not approach strangers. This face naturally carried a cool and aloof feeling. Fortunately, I am a peaceful person. Bai Luan seriously admired his face for a moment, then stared into the mirror for a while. Just thinking about having to make abstract expressions with this handsome face made him want to laugh. Hey, system, guess what I'll do with this handsome face in the future? I want to accompany the trailblazer to rummage through trash cans. Dang it, system, your IQ must be really something. Bai Luan swore he would do it at least once. Although this face was really handsome, now was not the time for admiration. Bai Luan walked out of the changing room. The Herta puppet glanced at Bai Luan. It's quite presentable. I'm actually quite curious, are you currently being remotely controlled by MS Herta? Or are you in intelligent robot mode? Of course, it's intelligent mode. MS Herta is busy with a myriad of tasks. You are not valuable enough for MS Herta to constantly stare at you. At this moment, another Herta puppet walked over and handed Bai Luan a phone. Bai Luan looked at the brand new phone, feeling a little overwhelmed. For me? Of course it's for you. You'll be working here, you can't not even have a phone. Consider it an investment from MS Herta. Then I'll accept it. There was even a phone case. With this, Bai Luan's beginner's gift package was complete. A finely crafted tailcoat, a brand new phone, a handsome face. And most importantly, a brand new identity in the Honkai Star Rail world. No matter what kind of life it was, it would be infinitely more exciting. More exciting than waiting to die from late-stage liver cancer. Just then, Bai Luan's newly acquired phone suddenly received a message. Herta invites you to join Herta's home. You have joined Herta's home. Herta sent you a file, MS Herta's home map. You have received the file. As a newcomer, let's start by memorizing the map of MS Herta's home. It's just a home, and it even has a map. Bai Luan opened the Herta puppet's file, and an overhead structural diagram immediately appeared. Oh, it doesn't look particularly exaggerated. Bai Luan muttered, extending 2 fingers and habitually making a pinch to zoom gesture on the screen. The map's scale changed, and more details flooded in. Dense markers and passages spreading out like a spiderweb. However, it wasn't over yet. Bai Luan began to realize something was wrong, so he trembled and continued to adjust the map scale. Once, twice. It reached its limit. Including the first time, he adjusted it 3 times in total before seeing the entire map. The entire map of Herta's home. Bai Luan used to think that driving to the restroom was just a joke. But now it seems it's not a joke. Bai Luan looked at the map on his phone, feeling immense pressure. He looked at the Herta puppet with a troubled expression and asked, "Do I have to memorize all of it?" Of course. A new life has begun. It's not that bad. But it seems not that good either. Chapter 4. Aha, he was not wrong about the person. Bai Luan received a room assignment, neither large nor tiny, a perfectly square space. It resembled a precisely carved metal cube in its design. The room appeared to have stored miscellaneous objects previously, and now it was his to manage. Regarding the clutter filling the space, Bai Luan inquired with the Herta puppet about handling it. The response he obtained was simple. They belong to you. So the present circumstance was that Bai Luan possessed a room, plus a chamber packed with mystery boxes. Opening mystery boxes brings excitement. Hee bro yeah, rubbing hands with enthusiasm. But if you reveal something and cannot identify what it is, then it becomes rather dull. Bai Luan gazed at the metallic textured panel in his palm. Without an instruction guide, he had zero clue what it was named or its purpose. In the end, he could merely return it to its place. He unveiled several consecutively, all comparable objects. Besides a pocket watch that he could comprehend, the remainder were incomprehensible. The thrill of acquiring numerous free items slowly diminished, and the mystery boxes before him lost their appeal. With the appeal vanished, they revealed their genuine nature to him. To Herta, they were redundant debris. To Bai Luan presently, they were trash, not even qualifying as debris. Perhaps when he matured and advanced, these trash objects could fulfill their actual function. But obviously, not at this moment. Bai Luan organized a bit, then relocated some suitably sized containers. Then he spread out some unidentified fabric he had unboxed that felt remarkably soft. A simple, barely acceptable makeshift sleeping arrangement emerged in a room corner. Bai Luan stood with hands on hips, observing the sleeping arrangement he had assembled together. A trace of pride appeared on his expression. HMPH, this demonstrates Bai Luan's remarkable adaptability. Whether it is a moldy worker dormitory or a rental dwelling with war-torn decoration, I will adapt. Right then, Bai Luan's phone suddenly rang with a notification. He retrieved it and noticed that the Herta puppet had transmitted him a message. Your daily necessities and basic furniture will arrive via robot shortly. Remember to accept delivery. Bai Luan rigidly rotated his head, his sight landing on the improvised sleeping arrangement he had painstakingly constructed. All that effort for absolutely nothing. Bai Luan grabbed his phone and responded to the Herta puppet's message. That is so generous. I assumed workers had to arrange things independently. You understand what to express at a moment like this. Long live Ms. Herta, T triangle T, close parenthesis, /. Nods in satisfaction, still clever. Settle in today and attempt to memorize the map I transmitted you. I will organize your tasks tomorrow. That is all. It has been so long since I have been treated like a person. I am deeply moved. Bai Luan secured his phone screen and turned to observe the sleeping arrangement he had assembled. From unopened containers and some unidentified soft fabric he had unboxed. What garbage is this? Bai Luan dismantled the sleeping arrangement he had recently constructed. These 2 rounds of organizing the room had genuinely exhausted Bai Luan. Especially after understanding he had done it all pointlessly, it became a double torment. Both physical and mental. But Bai Luan remained quite content. Not because he enjoyed suffering. Simply because, in those days covered by illness and the shadow of mortality, such troubles were luxury. Being able to move freely, to experience fatigue, to worry over a pile of garbage. It had been an unreachable luxury then. To run, to jump, to fuss, the sensation of not experiencing pain, it was genuinely wonderful. Bai Luan positioned himself on a wooden container and opened his phone. The phones in this world were not drastically different from those in his former life. Except they covered an entire universe instead of merely a single planet. Using them was also essentially the same. Many apps could be understood by comparing them to something from Honkai Star Rail. So gazing at that small screen brought Bai Luan an indescribable sense of familiarity, even making him question if he had genuinely transmigrated. Then he opened a shopping application, and as soon as it opened, he witnessed a pop-up. Are you exhausted of hostile forces constantly appearing before you? Are you tired of the bureaucracy before every civilization exchange? Now we proudly present Peacemaker, Type II, Custom Enemy Annihilation Cannon. When the main cannon's charging light illuminates, 99.7% of civilizations automatically understand peaceful dialogue importance. One purchase can preserve you 90% in diplomatic communication fees. What are you waiting for? Click the link and obtain yours now. P.S. Annihilation may cause the Aeon of Preservation to observe you. Please ensure you have purchased our company's Gaze of Kulipoth insurance package for use. This advertisement still brought Bai Luan considerable shock. The lengthy string of zeros in the price felt like it could purchase his life countless times. To recommend this to me is genuinely overestimating me. Bai Luan deactivated his phone screen. The room became silent again, with only the silent piles of garbage stacked in the corner, like a group of cold-eyed spectators. In their company, he began to contemplate his future plans. With his current body, attempting to be self-sufficient was obviously not very feasible. If he had not managed to secure the opportunity to remain here, and had instead been directly expelled by Herta, then being penniless, without communication, and without support, his survival chances here would have been quite low. Thanks to his quick thinking, he had directly resolved his identity, food, and housing problems. Right then, the system suddenly spoke. And you also managed to attract the attention of an Aeon. Bai Luan was startled, then replied in his mind. Me. That is right, when you shifted the blame to Aha, he started watching you. For some reason, he did not expose you. Maybe he thinks the fun I will bring him in the future will be much greater than the fun of exposing me now. A pretty reasonable guess, he has not shown any intention of harming you. His current state is more like an excited spectator. You are really skilled at finding adjectives. Never mind, if he is watching, he is watching. He is not giving me power anyway. Maybe if he watches long enough, he will develop feelings. And he will save me if I am about to perish one day. You do not mind having company while you observe, do you? I know him, but he does not know me. It is all the same to me whether he is there. Bai Luan shrugged. Aha really has no face. This small interlude quickly passed, and Bai Luan continued to plan his future. First, he would spend his beginner phase here with Herta, learn some self-preservation skills. Then leave, going wherever he pleased. Preferably, he would get on the express. Indeed, of all lives, the life of a nameless is the most longed for. It is just. Could his body last that long? It seemed he would also need to find some means of extending his lifespan. Herta had ways to reverse aging, but she certainly would not use them on him casually, unless he showed corresponding value. Let us not think so far ahead. Focusing on the present is most important. During this period of his growth, the persona of a prophet of destiny must not collapse. Not in Herta's eyes. And he must also show his value as soon as possible. Otherwise, being expelled by Herta would be very troublesome. To make Herta feel he has value. That really is a bit troublesome. All he could rely on now were the two functions the system had opened for him: the little black room and the artifact forger. Speaking of which, forging artifacts, how should he do it? Bai Luan casually found a piece of paper and folded it into a paper airplane. He picked up the paper airplane and examined it thoroughly. It looks no different from an ordinary paper airplane. Has my ability activated? Is this an artifact? Artifact casually made paper airplane. In a paper airplane contest with friends, use this paper airplane. And you will always fly a little further than your opponent, achieving a decisive victory. This thing should have been given to me when I was in elementary school or college. It seems that the ability to casually create artifacts requires strong practical skills and knowledge reserves. Otherwise, it would be like this, having a room full of materials, but only creating something like this. Let us look at the other ability. The little black room with infinite practice time. Do you want to enter the little black room? Enter. Entered the little black room. Bai Luan looked around in confusion. Am I not still in the room? When you enter the little black room, the surrounding environment will be copied in with you. Living things will not enter. If you do not believe me, open the door and see. Really? Bai Luan twisted open the door, and what greeted his eyes was a pitch-black void. Wow, it is really dark. Otherwise, why would it be called the little black room? When you enter here, the flow of time in the outside world is static. You can enter and exit freely. The only thing that interferes with you is your willpower. A very powerful ability. Bai Luan closed the door, glanced at the phone in his hand. Then opened the file transmitted by the Herta puppet. Since the little black room can perfectly offset the time cost of learning. Just a super large map. Watch me engrave you deeply into my mind. Does that not mean he could pretend to be a genius in front of Herta? Someone who understood everything at a glance and a listen. Pretending to be a genius in front of Genius Society members. Tell he did not misjudge me. I, a mere mortal, am about to deceive geniuses. And not just any geniuses, but the geniuses of the Genius Society. I am not a genius, but I have the ability to pretend to be a genius. For a lifetime without being exposed. Do you think I count as a genius? Chapter 5, Why Did You Come In Too? After a brief day of settling in, Bai Luan could be considered to have established a home. In this world, strictly speaking, for Bai Luan, it was not even a day. He did not even know how long he had remained in that little black room. Just staring intently at the map files. Now, Bai Luan was intimately familiar with Herta's residence. One could say he had a map in his head. The alarm on his phone rang, and Bai Luan, lying on the bed, opened his eyes. Turned off the alarm beside him, and sat up, his eyes momentarily vacant. But this was not because he had not slept enough. Rather, he had spent too long in the little black room. And getting up now gave Bai Luan a feeling of being in a different world. Bai Luan now felt as if a circuit diagram of Herta's residence was still before his eyes. It seemed just as the system had said. The only limitation to staying in the little black room was his own willpower. He would not be hungry, sleepy, or tired there, but he would feel lonely. Staying there alone for too long would likely cause mental problems. It almost drove me crazy. Bai Luan shook his head, casting off these strange thoughts, then stood up from the bed. Yesterday, shortly after Herta sent a message, the bed and some furniture were delivered. Bai Luan stood in front of the bed, stretched with a big yawn, and then moved his limbs. Happy. A genuine, slightly silly smile appeared on his face. A body that does not feel pain, it is really amazing. Bai Luan sighed with emotion, then opened the wardrobe. Inside were 5 identical sets of tailcoats. They were definitely enough to wear in rotation. And the simple clothes from when the system first constructed his body were worn by Bai Luan as pajamas. After changing, Bai Luan walked out of the room and began to follow the map in his mind to find a place to wash up. His room was originally just a storage room, so naturally, it did not have a bathroom or wash basin. He would have to ask a Herta puppet later if it was possible to install one. Not having a bathroom was truly troublesome. Fortunately, there was a place nearby that offered washing facilities. And the toiletries he needed had also been delivered yesterday. Although it was troublesome, after one round trip, he finally managed to wash up. Just as Bai Luan was pondering in his room whether to proactively contact a Herta puppet, his phone received a message. Are you awake? Go to this place to wash up later. A robot will come to your room to convert it into a bathroom for your personal needs. Indeed, staying with Herta was a good idea. The employee benefits were truly beyond words. Bai Luan recalled the location of his room. The file sent by the Herta puppet was extremely detailed, not only containing a layout map, but also circuit and pipeline route maps. Memorizing it all would truly be a killer. If he were to build a bathroom in his room. Wiring, location, size. Just thinking about it was troublesome. Anyway, it was a robot's job, so he did not need to worry about it. Bai Luan stopped considering these complex matters and replied with a light tap of his finger. I have already washed up, what should I do next? You already know how to use the map so quickly, your mind is quite sharp. Come here, according to Ms. Herta's instructions, you still have a lot to learn. Bai Luan glanced at the location Herta sent. Immediately found the corresponding spot on the map in his mind. And then planned a route, starting from his current position. Immediately, 3 or 4 routes formed in Bai Luan's mind. And he then chose the fastest one. On my way. 5 minutes later, Bai Luan arrived in front of the Herta puppet. 5 minutes without using a vehicle is the time required for the optimal route. You are quite efficient. It is not hard to do these things, I just memorized the entire map. Oh, all of it in just one night. Bai Luan nodded and said. That is right. The Herta puppet stared at Bai Luan with interest, then suddenly spoke. Now I want to go to the plant cultivation zone. What is the fastest way to get there? Bai Luan thought for a moment, then raised his finger and pointed at a nearby carpet, saying, the fastest way is, of course, to take that flying carpet and fly all the way there. Of course, I cannot use it, so if I were to go, I would first go straight along this path. Pass through the gravity reversal zone, then turn left from. Bai Luan fluently described the route he had planned, while the Herta puppet opposite him continuously compared Bai Luan's planned route with the optimal route in her mind. A faint smile appeared on the Herta puppet's face. The route Bai Luan described was correct, with only minor differences from the optimal route. He really did put the entire map into his head in just one night. And after memorizing it, he could use it very smoothly. From the perspective of an ordinary person, in terms of memory, he could be called extraordinarily gifted. Even a genius. But to the Herta puppet, it only made her slightly interested. Seeing the Herta puppet smile, Bai Luan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He had not been labeled as an idiot, which meant he was temporarily safe. Not stupid at all, it seems the upcoming teaching will save a lot of trouble. Speaking of which, Ms. Herta said to find some things for me to do. Can I ask Ms. Herta what exactly she plans for me to do? I will teach you whatever I see. The Herta puppet glanced at the carpet Bai Luan had just pointed at. That is it then, follow me. The Herta puppet led Bai Luan to the carpet. Since you have memorized the map, you should know that this carpet is not an ordinary carpet, but a portable vehicle disguised as a carpet. Bai Luan squatted down and touched the carpet. It was incredibly soft, making it impossible to imagine that this thing could carry people and fly. Both in feel and appearance, it was identical to a carpet. Looking at the lifelike carpet vehicle in front of him. Would not the cost be much lower if it was not made in the style of a carpet? That would not match the overall style. So you do not consider the cost at all, do you? Bai Luan had no doubt about how much economic benefit the technology used to make this carpet could generate, if it were applied to cargo transportation. But here, it was just a carpet with a suitable style. And he did not know if Herta would ever use it a few times in her life. Its usage conditions are also very simple. The Herta puppet, unaware of Bai Luan's internal complaints, continued her introduction. As long as you are Herta, you can use it. This activation condition had a beauty that disregarded the lives of others. If you absolutely must use it, you can ask a nearby Herta puppet to take you. But be warned, the possibility of refusal is very high. Then how can I increase the possibility of not being refused? That depends on whether the puppet's aggressive module is activated. Usually, it is on. Hearing this, Bai Luan nodded and said expressionlessly, yes, I think the existence of this module is as reasonable as the self-destruct button. That will definitely exist in a secret base. Watch fewer cliché movies. That way of forcibly creating crises is very boring. How can it compare to the ingenious ideas of the great Ms. Herta? So I will always have to walk on foot here? Not necessarily, If you show outstanding performance in the future, Ms. Herta might grant you permission to use it. Another unlikely event. Bai Luan squatted down, pretending to observe the carpet in front of him. It is better to take it yourself than for others to give it. Little black room activated. Let me see your structure. Bai Luan entered the little black room, just about to dismantle the carpet in front of him for a good study. Where is this? Hi. Bai Luan stared blankly at the Herta puppet in front of him. How did you come in too? Do you know what this place is? The Herta puppet glanced at Bai Luan, then took a step and walked around, observing her surroundings. It is identical to my residence. The replication is very high. Soon, she reached the edge of this replicated space. Outside the door was that pure, pitch-black void that consumed everything. The deep darkness was reflected in her purple eyes. No fear, no panic. Only a nearly greedy, extremely fervent thirst for knowledge burned in the depths of her pupils. Interesting. She softly uttered 2 words, like a scientist discovering a new continent. Bai Luan, meanwhile, looked at the Herta puppet standing at the edge. This puppet was not the Herta puppet who had been talking to him outside, but a puppet created when the little black room replicated the external environment. Bai Luan subconsciously treated these puppets, whose gestures, speech, and personalities were mimicked so vividly, as living beings in some sense. He had forgotten their essence. They were machines, creations, precise non-living entities crafted based on Herta's personality template from her youth. The little black room could not bring in living things. And the Herta puppet was not a living thing. The puppet was a creation Herta made based on her childhood appearance, possessing her own personality traits. So, what should I do with you now, Bai Luan observed the Herta puppet glancing around the little black room. A spark of curiosity lit up her violet eyes, making them shine like precious gems. This was the first time Bai Luan had witnessed Miss Herta displaying such interest since arriving here. For a genius like Miss Herta, encountering something incomprehensible was probably quite rare. Bai Luan paused, weighing whether to reveal the truth or continue misleading the puppet. He chose honesty. This space belonged to Bai Luan, his little black room. Everything within was merely a copy of reality, including the lifelike Herta standing before him. Even if she learned the truth, it wouldn't change anything in the real world. Even if chaos erupted here, reality would remain untouched. Besides, causing such chaos was impossible here. However, how would the Herta puppet respond upon discovering the truth? As Bai Luan explained, the Herta in the little black room gradually grasped the situation. You're saying I'm merely a duplicate and don't exist in reality. Correct? How does learning this truth make you feel? Once I exit the little black room, you might vanish along with me. Bai Luan had anticipated mostly negative reactions from the Herta puppet. After all, she was already a puppet, now a replica of one. Born in this tiny, 1/3 sized little black room, she would soon perish within these modest confines. Apart from Bai Luan, nobody would ever know she existed. Such a brief and suffocating destiny felt too fleeting, too hopeless. Yet facing such a fate, the replicated Herta puppet simply placed one hand on her hip and smiled. So what? This response surprised Bai Luan somewhat. You don't care at all. If this happened to me, I might have a breakdown. I'm just a puppet. Miss Herta has thousands upon thousands of me in her residence. What does it matter if one such puppet disappears, forgotten and unremembered? So you've calmly accepted it. Of course, even if I'm just a puppet, I am Herta. How could this genius feel depressed over such a tedious thing? I'd rather use that time thinking about more fascinating matters. Bai Luan looked at the emotionally composed Herta puppet and spoke with sincere admiration. Truly a genius, your thought process is indeed beyond ordinary comprehension. But your ability is genuinely special. You can activate it any time. Replicating everything in reality without distinction, and the time difference between worlds can be nearly static. How is this achieved? If I were to accomplish all of the above, I would need to. Just as Miss Herta herself said, she wasn't bothered for a moment by Bai Luan's questions. The Herta puppet was also Herta, a free-spirited genius scientist. You don't care. I care. Such a fact was as light as a feather to her, but to Bai Luan, it carried indescribable weight and pity. Miss Herta. He spoke, his voice not loud, but enough to interrupt her thoughts. The Herta puppet snapped back to attention, looking at him with slight confusion. What is it? I just wanted to tell you. Bai Luan met her gaze, his tone serious, almost solemn. In reality, you might be an unremarkable one among thousands of Herta puppets. But here, in this small, timeless little black room. He paused, then said, word for word. You are the only Herta. Rather than comforting Miss Herta, it was more like comforting himself. After hearing this, the Herta puppet stared at Bai Luan with her purple eyes for a long time. What was she thinking at that moment? If he could guess, it wouldn't be Herta, would it? After a long while, a faint but genuine smile spread across her lips. You are indeed very interesting. I truly wish the real me could have discovered this sooner. Not a bad response. I thought you'd be quite disdainful of this kind of self-important concern. There is a little bit of that. She admitted frankly, then tilted her head slightly, a hint of girlish cunning in her posture. But it's also been a long time since anyone cared for me in this way. Once in a while, it doesn't feel too bad. Do you want to keep her? Just then, the system's voice suddenly came. Can I? I can keep her if you wish. Bai Luan thought for a moment, then looked at the Herta puppet. Indeed, it was best to let her decide for herself. Miss Herta, do you want to live here? You have a way to keep me in this little black room. That's right. If it were me, I would have probably agreed by now. But across from him was Herta. If you agree to give me the right to decide the termination of this existence, then I agree. That way, when I get bored of this place, I can make myself disappear. You really don't care much about whether you live or not. Bai Luan couldn't help but comment, then asked the system. After receiving a definite reply, he nodded. Okay, no problem. Then I'll stay here for now. I'm very interested in this place and want to try deconstructing this space. Challenging the system. As you wish, I don't care. Bai Luan turned to the Herta puppet. Never mind, from now on, he would just call her Herta. Here she was Herta. Bai Luan extended his hand to Herta and said, Then it seems we'll be spending some time together. I hope we can get along well during this period. Herta extended her hand and shook Bai Luan's. As long as you don't bore me. That's quite a challenge. After settling things with Herta, Bai Luan's gaze returned to the carpet. This time, he had used the little black room specifically to study this carpet. Presumably, beneath its soft exterior, lay countless intricate structures. Bai Luan picked up the carpet, pondering how to begin. Just smash it open to see the structure. It felt like it would be very troublesome to take apart. You memorized the entire map in one night, and you did it by using this little black room. Yes, although only one night passed for you, I don't even know how long I stayed here to memorize everything. Are you planning to study this carpet this time? Bai Luan nodded. Wait a minute. Since there was a Herta here, why was he racking his brains? Couldn't he just ask her? Herta crossed her arms, looking at Bai Luan as if seeing through his thoughts, and spoke. You want me to teach you? That's right, self-learning is simply too slow. That would indeed be inefficient. How much do you know about this carpet? Bai Luan immediately straightened his back and looked at Herta with his clear, golden eyes that could reflect a person's image. Speaking with utmost sincerity. Nothing at all, Miss Herta. To be honest, my understanding of it is a complete, pure, utterly blank nothing at all. Herta was silent for 2 seconds, then unceremoniously retorted. With this level of knowledge, you still dare to call yourself a prophet who can glimpse the threads of fate. No one said a prophet has to be knowledgeable. Speaking of which, Miss Herta, are you interested in how long it takes to cultivate a genius from scratch? Oh. It's about trying to see how long it would take to teach someone to become a genius. A genius that even the real Miss Herta would acknowledge. What do you think? Are you in the mood for this experiment? All right. Herta agreed with unusual alacrity. Bai Luan's heart rejoiced, but before he could even feel elated. When I'm in the mood. Herta slowly added, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. I'll teach you. Bai Luan's face instantly fell. Who knew when this ancestor would be in the mood? Never mind, it was better than nothing. How should he take apart this carpet? Tear, smash, drop, na, pull. Just as Bai Luan was troubled by this, Herta's voice came. It has a dismantling mechanism. Bai Luan looked up and saw Herta sitting opposite him. It seemed Herta was in a good mood now. Where is it? It's right. The not-so-large little black room was filled with their conversation. The surrounding void, because of these exchanges, gained a trace of vitality. Chapter 7, Genius is Genius. Bai Luan emerged from the little black room after an unknown amount of time had passed. Now, when Bai Luan looked at the carpet before him, he didn't just see a carpet anymore. He had a complete understanding of its internal structure, assembly sequence, and operating principles. Now, if Bai Luan was given the tools, he could easily disassemble and reassemble the carpet before him. To achieve this, he had almost studied himself into a state of exhaustion. This was just something Herta had casually developed. Heaven knew how she had created something as outrageous as the simulated universe. Bai Luan stood up. He now knew how to hack into this carpet and grant himself permissions, but there was no need. He could already use the principles of this carpet to build his own means of transportation. He just needed to find some tools later. The crafting station at Miss Herta's place seemed to be at. Using it directly would be a bit presumptuous. It would be better to wait until he received permission. At the very least, he needed the consent of the Herta puppet in front of him. Bai Luan looked at the Herta puppet before him, a strange feeling filling his heart for a moment. She was identical to the Herta in the little black room. He was already very familiar with the Herta in the little black room. At first, when Herta realized she had to patiently teach him, and that his genius was all a facade. She even wanted to use her right to self-termination, to self-disintegrate. But she also couldn't bear to give up the opportunity to study the system. After all, she hadn't encountered such a difficult problem in a long time. Later, Herta summarized Bai Luan's learning pattern. Encounter an unfamiliar field, ask Herta, understand a little bit, stop asking and self-explore. Confidently fabricate a seemingly logical, but actually completely unworkable self-perception to convince himself. Experiment, fail miserably with clear eyes, realize this is an unfamiliar field, ask Herta. Except for the part where she taught Bai Luan, which was a bit boring for Herta, the rest of it was pure enjoyment. It was like Picasso, after reaching the peak of his painting skills, went on to study children's drawings. Bai Luan's exploration process, untainted by knowledge, full of errors yet incredibly sincere, was filled with novel amusement for her. Especially when Bai Luan confidently declared he understood, and then was immediately proven wrong by the experimental results. The instant look of bewilderment and shock, like a lost fawn, that spread across his golden eyes. It was truly an unmissable part. Inside the little black room, one taught with pleasure and observed with amusement, while the other learned slowly and progressed steadily, forming a peculiar symbiotic harmony. Bai Luan had also found almost the best teacher in the entire universe. Even if it wasn't Herta herself teaching, it was enough to outperform most teachers in this universe. Although it was harmonious inside the little black room, Bai Luan and this Herta puppet outside had only known each other for 2 days. If his attitude suddenly became overly eager, it probably wouldn't lead to a good outcome. But it really felt awkward this way. It would be better to get to know the Herta puppet outside as soon as possible. How is it? Both the softness and the millimetric detail reproduction are impeccable. When it's not activated, 99.9% of people in this world would think it's just a beautiful carpet. Yes, the reproduction was very accurate. When learning this part, Bai Luan wore a mask of agony the entire time. Herta used this technology simply to make this mode of transport consistent with the style of the entire residence, doing so completely at her whim. But this technology was not at all whimsical. This kind of camouflage technology that could make the appearance of mechanical creations look like furniture, applied to combat suits, vehicles, weapons. Then the enemy's tactical reports would probably become extremely abstract. You mean, the enemy used a broom to shoot out colorful lasers and broke through our front line. Someone wore pink pajamas to the battlefield, but tanks couldn't even scratch his clothes. The opponent was riding a bicycle, and our fighter jets couldn't catch up. What kind of peace elite is this? It seems that any casual corner in a genius's home could easily make the lives of a considerable number of people magical. Talent, truly, is something that leaves one helpless. Why do you look like you've had an epiphany? I was merely awestruck by the charm Miss Herta radiates at all times. Indeed, a genius is a genius. The Herta puppet nodded in agreement. Exactly, a genius is a genius. The Herta puppet took out her phone, and with a swipe of her fair finger, sent a document to Bai Luan's phone. This is about the carpet's care instructions and precautions. Since your memory is so good, I won't say much more. Go back and read it yourself. Ask if there's anything you don't understand. Bai Luan opened the document, flipping through it. Countless words rapidly flashed past his eyes, constantly comparing with the memories in his mind. Only stopping to glance when a memory slightly faltered. No problem, I hope Miss Herta won't mind too many questions. Go ahead and ask, I might not reply anyway. If you send too many messages, I'll automatically flag your account and activate the auto-reply module. He had basically mastered everything. Bai Luan could even improve this document now, turning it into a foolproof instruction manual. After the comparison was complete, Bai Luan stopped browsing. Finish skimming. Yes. The Herta puppet looked at Bai Luan, who could talk while flipping through, effortlessly multitasking, and asked, "How long will it take you to master these contents?" He couldn't possibly say he had already mastered them now, could he? Bai Luan pondered how to portray the demeanor of a genius, so he said in a somewhat uncertain tone, "Perhaps this afternoon." You learn quite quickly, it seems. It looks like I can teach you more things in a day. Whatever you like. Then let me see your limit for a day. The Herta puppet stepped onto the carpet, aimed her hand at the carpet beneath her feet, and with a light tap of her finger, activated it. The patterns on the carpet glowed faintly with a light purple light. The Herta puppet turned her head to look at Bai Luan. Come up, I'll take you to the next place. Bai Luan took a step forward and stepped onto the carpet. A suction force came from the carpet, firmly holding Bai Luan in place. This was to prevent people from being thrown off if the carpet moved too fast. What seemed like a thin layer of carpet could actually carry 4 or 5 people flying without any problem. Technology, isn't it amazing? But in fact, once you knew the principle, it was nothing extraordinary. The Herta puppet immediately started with a 0-frame launch, speeding off from a standstill. The surrounding scenery rapidly blurred backward. A strong push-back sensation came, and the strong wind whistled against Bai Luan's face. Even more critically, the Herta puppet's driving style was extremely wild. Right-angle drifts, extreme wall hugging, she even did a 360-degree aerial spin without warning. Inside the little black room, Bai Luan and the flying carpet appeared simultaneously, landing on the ground. Bai Luan's face was pale. He had never even ridden a roller coaster in his previous life. Now he was getting such an intense experience, who could handle it? Herta inside the little black room watched Bai Luan suddenly appear. In my eyes, you just left and came back again. Your appearance clearly shows you've been through something before returning. There is indeed a difference in the flow of time. Then Herta glanced around again. The moment Bai Luan appeared, in the blink of an eye, Herta's surroundings completely changed. It was as if she had instantly teleported to another area. How interesting. Bai Luan, who had fallen to the ground, didn't reply but sat on the ground to recover for a while. Then he looked at Herta and said in a complaining tone, "You never told me you liked to race. Did the real me take you on a flying carpet?" Herta glanced at Bai Luan's current appearance again, smiled slightly, and said, "Looking at you like this, you're not very accustomed to it. You say that even though you know." Bai Luan retorted irritably. "This is all because you suddenly started the car. This genius always pursues efficiency. Should have guessed. After this buffer, Bai Luan's complexion gradually returned to normal. Then he began to ponder how to not show any fear all the way to the destination. Feigned bravery is easy to expose. Why don't you just go see the real me in your current state? Still making fun of me? Bai Luan was about to say that, but when he looked at Herta, he found that her expression was serious as she made this suggestion. After all, you're quite cute like this. How could the real you not laugh at me? It's precisely because I find you cute that I would laugh at you. Although the real me probably wouldn't admit that. The real you would say, because it's funny I'm laughing at you, what's wrong, right? Aren't you quite understanding of me? Of course, I understand you. You and I have been in this little black room together for who knows how long. Thanks, Herta, it's really easier to communicate with you here. I wish I could communicate with you like this outside too. Bai Luan's figure disappeared from the little black room. After returning to reality, all the previous sensations reappeared. Bai Luan did not enter the little black room again, but slowly squatted down and grabbed the fibers on the carpet with his hand. Miss Herta, if possible, I hope you can go slower. The Herta puppet looked back with a hint of surprise. Seeing Bai Luan's face, drained of color and filled with weakness, pitifulness, and helplessness. You are afraid of this. Her tone carried a touch of disbelieving novelty. After receiving a weak but extremely affirmative nod from Bai Luan, the Herta puppet let out a short, playful chuckle. Hey, you're actually afraid of this. She seemed to have discovered something extremely interesting. Carefully observing this young man, who had consistently performed admirably since his arrival, even being considered smart. Who would have thought he would be defeated by the speed of a flying carpet? I'll go slower this time, but if you want to stay here for a long time, you'd best adapt quickly. The flying carpet slowed down a bit, making Bai Luan sigh in relief. Indeed, he still needed to quickly build a vehicle he could adapt to. Chapter 8, I think it must be called Inspiration Mushroom. The flying carpet was indeed very fast, covering a distance that would normally take over 10 minutes in just a few dozen seconds. Landing steadily at its destination. Bai Luan stepped off the flying carpet and onto the ground, feeling an unprecedented sense of stability. The floor, made of an unknown material, gave him a sense of security. However, due to the overly stimulating journey, he hadn't managed to remember the route. So Bai Luan had no idea where he currently was. Scanning his surroundings, he felt as if he were in a forest, filled with all sorts of unknown and bizarre plants. Some plants even exhibited strong characteristics of living creatures. Miss Herta also cultivates flowers and plants. And not just ordinary plants. The plants that looked normal were fine, at most, they just moved very obviously. But some of these flowers clearly had mouth-like organs, even with sharp teeth inside. He felt like these plants could be grown in Dave's garden to defend against zombies. This is a botanical garden created by Miss Herta on a whim, by genetically programming plants from the Azure Star. Currently, there are probably a few hundred types of plants. There are all kinds, moving, non-moving, beautiful, ugly, poisonous, non-poisonous. So, what I need to learn next is to memorize these plants. Exactly, although these plants differ in appearance and habits, they have one thing in common. They all photosynthesize. The Herta puppet glanced at Bai Luan, its gaze as if saying, could you say something we don't already know? Then the Herta puppet spoke, revealing their true commonality. There aren't just plants here, some plants don't even photosynthesize. Here they have only one thing in common, they are all very, very difficult to keep alive. Sounds like my learning task is going to be very difficult. Do you see that mushroom? The Herta puppet raised its hand and pointed to a brown mushroom. It talks. This isn't a fungus anymore, is it? This is clearly a completely new type of creature. That's why it's kept here. The useless ones were long ago eliminated by Miss Herta. The ones that remain here are all valuable enough to be kept. What happens if I kill one? I will report it truthfully to Miss Herta. As for how she will handle it, you can guess for yourself. He had a feeling it wouldn't end well. That brown mushroom, if the humidity is too high, it dies. If it's over-fertilized, it dies. If it's in a bad mood, it also dies. This mushroom is like a pampered lord, so delicate. You'd best not let it hear what you just said, or it might get so angry it dies. Does this kind of work really have to be given to me? Although he didn't have the luxury of being picky, it was still better to avoid such troublesome work if possible. Of course, you can choose not to do this job. I will find you other easier jobs. But if you can do this job well, it proves your value, and you can stay here and live as a gardener. As for the easier jobs, robots can also do them, so your value won't be as high. Why didn't you say so earlier? I'll take it. Before I start, if I finish the work here, can I use the facilities? Can you even understand how to use them? And you want to use them? I can learn, and I learn very quickly. The Herta puppet stood still, pondering for a moment, then finally said, Your foundation for staying here is your value. If the trouble you cause exceeds your value, you will be kicked out. Can you accept these terms? No problem. Then go ahead and use them. Just don't accidentally blow up the entire laboratory, release something that shouldn't be released, and almost destroy the entire Azure Star. That would be very troublesome to deal with. Bai Luan's mouth twitched. Why did it sound like it had actually happened? No way had it really happened. Now he knew how the Azure Star's first 18 world crises came about. Miss Herta saved the Azure Star from its crises. As for why it was in crisis, don't ask yet. Thinking like that is too pessimistic. Maybe only 4 or 5 of them were related to Miss Herta. Since you've made your choice, I'll start teaching you. All right. First, this rose bush, as you can see, its first characteristic is its size. Bai Luan looked at the roses, a rose bush taller than a person, with huge flowers like magnificent crowns. Quite spectacular. It gave him the illusion that the world had grown bigger, and he had shrunk. They change color according to their mood. For example, a blue rose means it's in a good mood, while dark red means it's somewhat hostile towards you. At this moment, the roses were all different colors: red, blue, pink, purple, white, yellow, orange, all present. If I make these roses unhappy, what will they do? They will shoot out their thorns to prick you. But don't worry too much. Their inspiration comes from the Knights of Beauty, so their temper is still very good. If you manage to provoke them into attacking you, then I have to admit, you truly have some skill. With the Knights of Beauty, those good-natured people really get angry. Just then, Bai Luan noticed a black rose. Among the vibrant, colorful flowers, black seemed out of place. What emotion does black represent? Oh, it's depressed. Flowers can get depressed too. Why not? Taking care of their moods is also part of your job. How do I take care of a rose's mood? That's the difficult part of your job, figuring out what these plants are thinking. Bai Luan secretly noted the black rose. This was a problem he, as a gardener, needed to address. The Herta puppet continued to lead Bai Luan forward, pointing to a pumpkin with a grimace and saying, This is a jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. Miss Herta, thinking most of them are going to be made into jack-o'-lanterns anyway, so why not make them grow like that from the start? Used genetic programming to design them to grow this way from the beginning. What if it's not Halloween? Just leave it. After modification, it's no longer suitable for eating. It's incredibly hard now. After saying that, the Herta puppet took out its hammer and mercilessly smashed it against the jack-o'-lantern pumpkin. A heavy blow landed on the jack-o'-lantern pumpkin with a dull thud. But when the Herta puppet removed the giant hammer, the pumpkin was perfectly intact. It was indeed very hard. He felt that the Herta puppet's hammer strike just now could have killed him. Resistant pumpkin. If you take good care of it, the pumpkin's grimace will be a smiling face when it grows up. If not, it will be a crying face. What if I need a crying pumpkin? You can beat a smiling pumpkin until it cries. It can even change expressions. Of course, it just changes a bit slowly. Then the Herta puppet led Bai Luan towards the brown mushroom. Good morning, Miss Herta Mushroom. This is the talking mushroom I showed you earlier. Was it illusion spores or telepathy that achieved this effect? Never mind, that's not important. Its characteristic is that it talks and has a verbal tick of saying mushroom at the end of its sentences. This seems more like magic than technology. Bai Luan looked at the brown mushroom and asked, "What should I call this mushroom?" "You can call it whatever you want. Big mushroom, brown mushroom, talking mushroom, anything is fine. It doesn't have a name anyway." Ahem. Bai Luan stared at the mushroom and said seriously, "I think it must be called Inspiration Shroom." Inspiration Shroom Shroom. This verbal tick could be exploited. Come on, Inspiration Shroom, repeat after me. Inspiration Shroom, Inspiration Shroom, Inspiration. Inspiration Shroom, Inspiration Shroom. Oh, what a perfect exploitation of the rules. Satisfying. After an unknown amount of time, the entire botanical garden had been introduced by the Herta puppet. Finally, every time you enter or exit here, you must undergo a disinfection and cleaning to ensure no seeds are carried out. These plants are based on native azure star plants and can also grow on this planet. If they are taken outside, they will cause a series of troublesome issues. Invasive alien species. Understood. The documents will be sent to you later. Now you can move freely and familiarize yourself with this botanical garden. Whenever you're ready, come here to work. The moment the Herta puppet finished speaking, Bai Luan entered the little black room. He'd come out after leveling up to max. Before him was an empty wasteland, identical in layout to the botanical garden outside. The moving vines, the long-mouthed flowers, the glowing fungi, the tall emotional roses, the hard jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, all were gone. Only barren soil, empty cultivation troughs, and cold instrument stands remained, like a ransacked ruin. Botanical garden. A familiar voice came from beside him. The Herta puppet from the little black room had appeared beside him at some point, arms crossed. A subtle, mischievous smile playing on her exquisite puppet face, as if she had successfully pulled off a prank. Her violet eyes, reflecting the desolation, shimmered with an all-knowing light. Plants, she drew out the word, with a hint of sly amusement, are also a kind of living thing, so. She turned her head, looking at Bai Luan's frozen face, and softly uttered the cruel truth. They couldn't be replicated in here. This was a bit troublesome now. His foundation for pretending to be a genius had been banned. Was he about to be exposed? Chapter 9, Look How Cute. Is he panicking? If it were his former self, he would definitely be panicking, feeling unsure, and he thought that in such a condition, he would rapidly expose himself. However, after everything he had gone through, and spending so much time in the little black room, he was no longer his former self. Considering it thoroughly, the little black room wasn't entirely banned, it just became less practical. Being unable to bring living creatures into the little black room meant that it was impossible to perfectly replicate reality 100%. He couldn't level up entirely in the little black room before coming out. He had to combine it with reality. The risk had certainly increased. Yet this didn't mean the little black room was entirely useless. Even if he couldn't bring plants into the little black room, he could still use it to replicate the whole botanical garden scene. Remembering these details could also assist him. As for practical implementation, there was also the Herta puppet in the little black room. He could consult her every time he made a choice, which would at least stop him from making foolish errors. Overall, it was challenging, but not impossible to solve. Have you thought of a solution? I need your assistance. I won't respond if you ask too dull questions. I won't ask. Bai Luan sighed, thinking about the troublesome assignments he had ahead, and scratched his head helplessly. It appears I'll have to take notes here from now on. Bai Luan stretched out his hand and clenched it in the void. A thick leather notebook and a retro-styled fountain pen materialized out of thin air in his palm. The Herta puppet was accustomed to this. At first, she even attempted to study it, trying to comprehend the principle behind it, but later discovered that this operation completely defied logic and physics. If she had the authority to do this here, it would be very convenient for her research. Unfortunately, the entity called the system was unwilling to grant her the authority. Otherwise, the Herta puppet would definitely create a noose in this little black room, and then relentlessly interrogate that mechanical head. After the Herta puppet determined that this path was impossible, she shifted her goal, attempting to communicate with the so-called system. This kind of existence, similar to a star god but entirely different, was truly worth investigating. However, regrettably, for now, she could only communicate with the system through Bai Luan. So far, they had only exchanged a few words. Even Bai Luan, the host of this system, didn't communicate much with it. Just as the system described itself, an observer who occasionally spoke. Next, I'll be repeatedly entering and exiting here to draw a botanical garden manual. I should be sending you files, right? Why bother writing it yourself? Doing it yourself helps you remember it better, of course. The real reason is because Bai Luan wrote the large characters Botanical Garden Research Manual on the blank notebook. Then he held the blank notebook, shook it at the Herta puppet, and said, "This will be more interesting, won't it?" Then Bai Luan gently tossed the notebook upwards, and his figure vanished into the little black room. In reality, the Herta puppet looked at Bai Luan and said, "You stay here and get familiar with the place. I have other things to attend to. Anyway, you know the way home. Oh, and don't go back before 4 p.m. The construction team is expanding your room." Understood. Chapter 10, The Price of Living with Geniuses. Although he genuinely wanted to go straight back to his little room and collapse onto his bed for a proper rest, he couldn't do that now. First, it wasn't yet 4 p.m., so his little room hadn't been fully expanded yet. Second, his clothes were dirty. He had roughly cleaned them when exiting the botanical garden's disinfection area. The obvious mud was gone, but there were still many mud stains clinging to his clothes. Throwing himself onto the bed in such clothes was not a wise idea. He needed to find a place to wash them. Bai Luan took off his swallowtail coat, folded it, and hung it over his arm. He thought about the closest place where he could wash clothes, using the map in his mind. A route was immediately planned in his mind, but it was a bit far. Bai Luan subconsciously glanced at the carpet. Even if he could use it, he probably wouldn't choose to. He'd just walk there. Bai Luan swung the coat in his hand, shaking off the water droplets. He didn't know what material this clothing was made of. It was very easy to clean. The stains were washed away with just a rinse of water, not even requiring laundry detergent. High-tech products really are fantastic. Bai Luan sighed with emotion, refolding the coat and hanging it over his arm. I remember there was a laboratory nearby. Bai Luan, still thinking about building his own vehicle, naturally wanted to check out such a place. After all, one of the two major advantages the system gave him was the ability to turn manufactured items into curios. It would be a waste not to create some miraculous little gadgets with such an ability. Moreover, he had already obtained permission from the Herta puppet to go and observe, then copy the environment into his little black room for research. Having made up his mind, Bai Luan walked towards the laboratory. Before long, Bai Luan arrived at the laboratory's valve. It's closed. Bai Luan looked at the authentication interface that popped up on the touchscreen. Had Herta entered his data into the entire space station's database? Would a crimson warning pop up the moment he put his hand on it, activating automatic guards and spawning a bunch of robots to chase him? He really had too much imagination. What good was imagination? Just do it. Bai Luan shook his head and slapped his palm directly onto the authentication interface. The authentication interface immediately scanned Bai Luan's hand the moment he placed it on. Name, Bai Luan. Position, none. Authority level, level 4 authority. Access granted. Level 4 high. That probably corresponded to a handyman or a visitor. Perhaps one day, he could obtain level 1 authority. A series of mechanical twisting sounds came, and the valve opened, revealing the facilities inside. It was a shame this wasn't an anime. There wouldn't be scene cuts to various instruments with narration explaining them. So Bai Luan could only walk into this laboratory with the clear eyes of a university student, mixed with the demeanor of someone entering an unfamiliar grand place. It proved that when one precise instrument after another entered his vision, and his mind racked itself without being able to tell him what it was for, he would directly perceive the inadequacy of his knowledge. In his previous life, he was accustomed to this feeling and didn't care at all. For him at the time, the pursuit of knowledge came after making money. Of course, Bai Luan wouldn't say that his choice in his previous life was wrong. Perishing in the end was just due to his bad luck. It was just. Bai Luan's golden eyes looked at an unknown instrument on the experimental bench, and he curiously reached out to touch it. Reborn, I want to try a different path. What is your name? And what is your purpose? In this life. Let me study it thoroughly. Little black room, activate. Light and shadow flowed, space shifted, and Bai Luan entered the little black room. Herta closed the thick notebook in her hand and looked up at the suddenly appearing Bai Luan. In fact, from her perspective, Bai Luan had appeared the very next instant after he disappeared. It seemed that due to the difference in time flow, she wouldn't have much time alone. This kind of life was quite good. Every time Bai Luan returned, the surrounding environment would change, giving it a feeling of opening a surprise box. Where had he gone this time? Herta held the notebook, her gaze sweeping around and her eyebrows slightly raised. A laboratory. Yes, I was thinking of making something. Let me think, with your current skill level. Herta rested a hand on her chin, pondered for a moment, and then said, You'll probably encounter many difficulties. It can't be that bad, can it? Bai Luan pulled at the corner of his mouth helplessly. I should be stronger than I was initially, right? I'm not denying your progress. You are indeed much stronger than you were at first. Herta's tone was flat, and equally cold words came from her icy mouth. My point is that even if you've made a lot of progress since the beginning, you're still not very good. Bai Luan shrugged helplessly, a wry smile playing on his lips. You're still the same, sharp and hurtful, accurate and blunt. Herta wouldn't accommodate him, she always spoke her mind. Honest advice was inherently unpalatable, and Herta was not someone easy to get along with to begin with. How should he put it? This was probably the price one had to pay for sharing a room with a genius. Although he had to endure Herta's sharp tongue, he could also make rapid progress under her guidance. Overall, it was a painful yet happy experience. I want to build a flying backpack. Its forward propulsion will rely on 4 thrusters. To achieve this, what do I need to learn? Can it be made in this laboratory? And can the technology from the flying carpet be used? A flying backpack. It feels inferior to a magic flying carpet in terms of operation and maneuverability. You might as well just use the flying carpet's technology to make 2 shoe soles, attach them to your shoes, and then modify your clothes to add a gliding device. Although the principle is simple, it can also meet your needs. Isn't that just something similar with a wind glider? Bai Luan remembered there actually was a wind glider on Herta Space Station. Although Herta's suggestion was good, Bai Luan shook his head and said, No, I still want to follow my original idea. Tell me why. Herta put her hand on her hip, her small frame exuding an undeniable aura. My suggestion is simpler and less difficult. Bai Luan wore a serious expression, his eyes firm as if he could join a cause, and said, Because I think a flying backpack is cooler. If it weren't for technological limitations, Bai Luan would have loved to launch immediately in the stance of a giant mech. If he could pilot a mech and roam the universe for a while, this life would be worth it. Herta smiled upon hearing this, one hand on her hip, and said, You have personality, but having the illness of a genius without the talent of a genius can be very tough, you know. Conversely, perhaps this is the first step to becoming a genius. I have to say, your perspective is quite genius-like. Don't say that, I'll get conceited. For once, Herta also expressed agreement with Bai Luan. Being optimistic is fine, I don't object. Honestly, I thought you'd mock my foolishness. For me, success is commonplace. I once thought it was boring for mortals to repeatedly hit walls over small problems. But now, watching you repeatedly hit walls, break down, go crazy, and then, like an unkillable insect, painstakingly dig out that insignificant success from the rubble. She tilted her head slightly, as if discovering a new cosmic phenomenon. Tusk, it's actually quite interesting. She paused, her gaze, always carrying a sense of scrutiny, now seemed to pierce through time, landing on Bai Luan's every clumsy fall and rise thoughtfully. I'm starting to understand that god of fun a little. Bai Luan looked at the genius beside him. It seems that, in the eyes of a genius, the clumsy attitude of a mortal slowly crawling, Bai Luan said softly, can also become a kind of scenery. Although, in reality, a genius wouldn't spend time to stoop down and look closely at such a sight.